The missile was pointed right at his window. Sebastian pressed his face against the cold glass of seat 12F and stared death in the eye. The F-22 fighter jet hung in the air beside him like a steel angel of doom. Inside the cockpit he could see the pilot's finger hovering over the trigger. One wrong move and 180 people would die. The woman next to him was crying. The old man in front was praying. But all Sebastian could think about was Maya, his 8-year-old daughter waiting at the airport with her bright smile and bouncing braids. "Daddy always comes home," he had promised her that morning. But promises meant nothing to a missile. The fighter pilot raised his hand, not to wave, to salute. And suddenly Sebastian remembered who he used to be. Before he was just a man in seat 12F. Before he was just another passenger on flight 447. He was Thunder 7, and Thunder 7 never left anyone behind. It had started as a normal Tuesday morning. Sebastian kissed Maya goodbye at his sister's house where she stayed while he traveled for work. "When will you be back, Daddy?" Maya asked. She was eating cereal and her school uniform was wrinkled. "Tonight, baby girl." "I promise." Maya looked up at him with her mother's eyes, dark brown and full of wisdom that seemed too old for an 8-year-old. "Mommy used to promise too," she said quietly. Sebastian's heart broke a little. Maya's mother, Sarah, had promised to come home from the hospital. But cancer doesn't care about promises made to little girls. "This is different, Maya. Daddy's just going to work. Not to fight any sickness." Maya nodded, but Sebastian could see the worry in her eyes. Ever since Sarah died, Maya feared everyone she loved would leave her too. "I'll call you when I land," Sebastian said. "And tomorrow is Saturday. We'll go to the park and get ice cream, double scoops." Maya smiled then. That bright, beautiful smile that made Sebastian's whole world make sense. "I love you, Daddy. I love you more than all the airplanes in the sky." It was their special saying. Maya always laughed because she knew her daddy used to fly airplanes. Now 3 hours later, Sebastian was looking at airplanes that might kill him. The plane shook again. Captain Williams' voice crackled through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious situation. 2 military fighter jets have intercepted our aircraft. We are unable to communicate with them or with air traffic control." Panic spread through the cabin like wildfire. A baby started crying. Someone screamed. The flight attendants tried to calm people down, but their faces were white with fear. Sebastian looked out his window again. The fighter jet was so close he could see the pilot's name tag. The missile under the wing looked bigger than his car. "What's happening?" the woman next to him whispered. Her name was Janet. She had told him earlier she was flying to see her new grandson. "I don't know," Sebastian lied. But he did know. He had been a fighter pilot for 20 years. He knew exactly what was happening. The jets thought their passenger plane was a threat. Maybe hijacked, maybe carrying terrorists. When commercial aircraft don't respond to radio calls, the military has to assume the worst. And when the military assumes the worst, people die. "Sir, excuse me, sir." Sebastian turned around. A flight attendant was standing in the aisle. Her hands were shaking. "The captain wants to see you." "Me? Why?" "He heard you talking about being in the military." Sebastian had mentioned it to Janet when she asked what he did for work. He told her he used to be a pilot. Now he worked for an aviation company. "Please, sir. He really needs your help." Sebastian looked at Janet. She grabbed his hand. "Go," she said. "If you can help us, please go." Sebastian stood up on shaky legs. He followed the flight attendant to the front of the plane. Other passengers watched him with desperate hope in their eyes. The cockpit door was open. Captain Williams looked like he had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. "Are you really military?" the captain asked. "Was 20 years Air Force fighter pilot. Call sign Thunder 7. Captain Williams closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there were tears. My son is Air Force. He's deployed right now. Flying missions I can't even know about. Sebastian nodded. He understood. The families of military pilots live with fear every day. What do you need, Captain? Those jets out there. They think we're hostile. Our radios are dead. We can't tell them we're just a passenger flight. Sebastian looked through the cockpit window. Both F-22s were in attack formation now. He recognized the setup. They were preparing to fire warning shots. And if the plane didn't respond after that, they would shoot to kill. How long do we have? Sebastian asked. Minutes, the co-pilot said. Maybe less. Sebastian's mind raced back to his training. 20 years of flying fighter jets. 20 years of learning how to communicate when radios failed. There were other ways to talk to military aircraft. I need to get to the external light controls. What? Hand signals. Light patterns. Every military pilot knows them. Captain Williams looked confused, but he moved aside. Sebastian sat in the jump seat and reached for the light panel. His hands were shaking. He thought about Maya again, about her smile this morning. About the promise he made. What are you doing? The co-pilot asked. Morse code, Sebastian said. I'm going to tell them who we are. He started flashing the external lights. Long flash, short flash, long flash. The pattern for the letter, T then H then U, then N then D, then E then R, his old call sign. Thunder 7. The fighter jets didn't respond at first. Sebastian kept flashing. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might explode. Then the lead jet rolled to the right, just slightly. Then back to level. They see it, Sebastian whispered. He flashed. Again, this time spelling out a different message. FRIENDLYAIRCRAFT. The fighter jets pulled back slightly. They were listening. Sebastian kept going. He told them about the radio failure. He told them they were commercial flight 447 bound for Chicago. He told them they had 180 civilian passengers on board. One of the F-22s moved closer to the cockpit window. Sebastian could see the pilot clearly now, young, maybe late 20s. The same age Sebastian had been when he first started flying fighters. The pilot was looking right at him. Then slowly the young pilot raised his hand to his helmet. He was saluting. Sebastian felt tears roll down his cheeks. He saluted back through the window. The second fighter pilot did the same thing. Both military aviators were saluting a man in a business suit sitting in a passenger plane. But they weren't saluting Sebastian Johnson, the businessman. They were saluting Thunder 7. They were saluting a brother. My God, Captain Williams whispered. It's working. The fighter jet stayed with Flight 447 for the rest of the trip. They escorted them all the way to Chicago O'Hare Airport. When the plane finally touched down, Sebastian could see emergency vehicles everywhere. Fire trucks, police cars, ambulances. But they were safe. As passengers filed off the plane, many of them stopped to thank Sebastian. Janet hugged him tight. You saved all of us, she said. We're all going home to our families because of you. An elderly man shook his hand. Thank you, son. My wife is waiting for me. A young mother with twin babies started crying. These girls will grow up because of what you did. Sebastian felt overwhelmed. All he had done was remember his training. Remember who he used to be. Captain Williams met him at the cockpit door. Thunder 7, he said. I don't know how to thank you. Just hug your son when he gets home from deployment, Sebastian replied. I will. I promise I will. Sebastian walked through the airport terminal in a daze. His legs felt like jelly. News reporters were already there asking questions. Airport security wanted to interview him. But all Sebastian wanted was to see his daughter. Then he heard her voice. Daddy, Maya was running toward him with her arms spread wide. Her braids bounced with each step. Her smile lit up the whole terminal. Sebastian dropped to his knees and caught her in his arms. He held her so tight he was afraid he might hurt her. But she held him just as tight. "I was scared, Daddy," she whispered in his ear. "Scared of what, baby girl? They said on TV that your plane had problems. That fighter jets were chasing you." Sebastian pulled back and looked at his daughter. Her eyes were red from crying. "But you came home," she said. "You kept your promise." "I will always keep my promises to you, Maya." Sebastian's sister Carmen walked up to them. She had been crying too. "The whole country saw it on the news," she said. "They're calling you a hero." "I'm not a hero," Sebastian said. "I'm just a daddy who needed to get home." That night Sebastian tucked Maya into her bed. She had been quiet. During dinner, now she looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, were you really scared up there?" Sebastian thought about lying, about telling her everything was fine, but Maya was smart. She deserved the truth. "Yes, baby. I was very scared, but you were brave anyway." "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, Maya. Being brave means you do what's right even when you are scared." Maya nodded like she understood. "Mommy was brave when she was sick, wasn't she?" Sebastian's throat got tight. "Yes, baby. Mommy was the bravest person I ever knew. And you're brave too. I learned how to be brave from watching Mommy. And from watching you. From me. You've been so strong since Mommy went to heaven. You take care of Daddy just as much as Daddy takes care of you." Maya smiled and closed her eyes. "Tell me the airplane story, Daddy." It was what she always asked. 4. The story of how Mommy and Daddy met at an air show. How Daddy was performing in his fighter jet and Mommy was watching from the ground. "Once upon a time," Sebastian began, "there was a pilot who thought he was pretty hot stuff." Maya giggled. She knew this story by heart, but she never got tired of hearing it. He was flying his jet, doing loops and rolls, trying to impress everyone. Was he a good pilot? He thought he was. But then he saw the most beautiful woman in the whole world, standing by the runway. "Mommy, Mommy." And when he saw her smile, his hands got so shaky, he almost crashed his plane. Maya laughed harder. But he didn't crash. No, he landed safe and sound. And he walked right up to that beautiful woman and said the stupidest thing he could think of. What did he say? He said, "Hey, baby, want to go for a ride?" Maya was laughing so hard, now she could barely breathe. And what did Mommy say? Mommy said, "I don't ride with pilots who show off. I ride with pilots who are careful with precious cargo." And then what happened? Then Daddy learned that the most important thing about flying isn't how fast you go or how many tricks you can do. The most important thing is making sure everyone gets home safe. Maya's laughter faded to a sleepy smile. "Is that why you helped everyone on the plane today?" "That's exactly why, baby girl. Because Mommy taught you about precious cargo. The most precious cargo of all is the people we love." Maya closed her eyes. Sebastian kissed her forehead and turned off the light. In the hallway he stopped and looked at a picture on the wall. It was from his Air Force graduation. He and Sarah were so young. So happy, they had no idea what was coming. The deployments, the long separations, the cancer that would take Sarah away when Maya was only 5. But they had been happy. And they had Maya, the most beautiful little girl in the world. Sebastian walked to his bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. On the nightstand was another picture. Sarah holding baby Maya at the hospital. Both of them looking at him with such love, it took his breath away. "I kept my promise today," he whispered to the picture. I came home to her. The next morning Sebastian woke up to the smell of pancakes. Maya was in the kitchen with Carmen trying to flip them in the pan. "Daddy, look," Maya called. "I'm making breakfast." The pancakes were burned on one side and raw on the other. They were the most beautiful pancakes Sebastian had ever seen. Their perfect, baby girl. While they ate, Maya chattered about school and her friends and her upcoming dance recital. Normal 8-year-old things. It was exactly what Sebastian needed after yesterday. "Daddy," Maya said as they finished eating, "can I ask you something? Anything. Those pilot friends who helped us yesterday. Do they have little girls too? Sebastian thought about the young pilots in the F-22s. Some of them probably do. I want to write them thank you letters. That's a wonderful idea, Maya. And I want to draw them pictures. What kind of pictures? Pictures of families. So they remember what they're protecting when they fly, Sebastian felt his eyes get watery again. His 8-year-old daughter understood something that took him years to learn. Military service isn't about jets and missiles and showing off. It's about protecting the people you love. It's about making sure families stay together. We'll mail the letters today, Sebastian said. That afternoon they drove to the post office. Together, Maya had drawn 6 pictures, families at parks, families at dinner tables, families hugging. In each picture she had written the same message. Thank you for keeping us safe so we can be together. Sebastian helped her address the envelopes to the Air Force Base where the F-22s were stationed. Do you think they'll like them, Daddy? I think they'll love them, baby girl, on the way home. Maya was quiet again. Then she spoke. Daddy, I'm proud of you. Why, sweetie? Because yesterday when everyone was scared, you remembered how to be. Thunder 7, Sebastian almost had to pull the car over. How do you know about Thunder 7? Mommy told me. She said that was your special pilot name. She said Thunder 7 was the bravest pilot in the whole Air Force. Sebastian smiled through his tears. Even gone for 3 years, Sarah was still taking care of them both. What else did Mommy tell you about Thunder 7? She said Thunder 7's most important mission was always coming home to us. That night Sebastian sat in his backyard, looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there pilots were flying, training missions, combat missions, protecting people they would never meet. He thought about the moment on the plane when he saw that missile pointing at his window. When he thought he might never see Maya again. When he realized that all his years of flying and fighting and serving came down to one simple thing. Getting home to the little girl who needed him. His phone rang. It was Carmen. You okay, little brother? Yeah, just thinking about. What? About how lucky I am. Lucky? You almost died yesterday. But I didn't. I came home. Maya still has her daddy. Carmen was quiet for a moment. Sarah would be so proud of you. I hope so. I know so. You kept her most important promise. What promise? That Maya would always have someone to come home to her after the call. Sebastian went inside to check on Maya. She was fast asleep holding her favorite stuffed animal. A little airplane Sarah had bought her when she was 3. Sebastian sat in the chair next to her bed and watched her sleep. Her face was peaceful, safe, loved. Tomorrow the news people would want more interviews. Tomorrow there would be more questions about what happened on Flight 447. But tonight there was just this. A little girl sleeping safely in her own bed. A father who kept his promise. A family that stayed together when it could have been torn apart. Sebastian thought about his call sign one more time. Thunder 7. It had meant strength and speed. And power when he was young. Now it meant something different. It meant coming home. It meant keeping promises. It meant being there for the people who need you most. The most important mission Thunder 7 ever flew wasn't in a fighter jet 30,000 feet in the sky. It was in Seat 12F on a passenger plane full of people who just wanted to go home to their families. Just like him. Sebastian kissed Maya's forehead one more time and whispered, "Sweet dreams, baby girl. Daddy's home." And for the first time since Sarah died, he truly felt like he was. Sebastian sat in the quiet of his living room long after Maya had gone to bed, the clock ticking softly on the wall, the house dim except for the soft glow of the lamp by his chair, and for the first time since the harrowing events aboard Flight 447 he allowed himself to breathe, really breathe, letting the air fill his lungs with the heavy relief of a man who had stared death in the face and somehow found a way to keep walking. And as he sat there he thought about all the roads that had led him here, the young pilot who once believed that flying was all about speed and adrenaline. The husband who fell in love with a woman who saw through his bravado to the man underneath. The father who had promised his little girl that he would always come home. And the grieving widower who had struggled through nights darker than any sky he had ever flown beneath. Yet here he was, still standing, still breathing, still keeping promises that had once felt impossible to keep. And he realized that life, like flying, wasn't about the tricks or the danger or the moments of glory, but about the steady persistence of showing up, of staying steady on course, of landing safely even when the storms threatened to tear you apart. He thought about the faces on that plane, the woman who had hugged him, the man who had thanked him with trembling hands, the mother with her twin daughters who would grow up not knowing how close their lives had come to ending in fire. And he felt humbled, because though they called him a hero, he knew deep down he hadn't saved them by being fearless, but by letting his fear sharpen his instincts, by remembering who he was when it mattered most, by being Thunder 7 again, not 4. Glory or medals, but for them, for families, for children, for the fragile gift of tomorrow. He stood and walked down the hallway quietly, careful not to wake Maya, and paused again at the picture of Sarah on the wall, her smile frozen in time, her eyes looking back at him with the same mixture of love and strength she had always carried. And he whispered to her like he had so many times before, telling her about the day, about how close he had come to breaking his promise, about how Maya had been brave and strong, about how their daughter wanted to write letters to the fighter pilots, because even at 8 years old, she understood the sacred responsibility of protecting what mattered most. And though the photo never spoke back, he felt in his heart what Sarah would have said. I told you, Thunder 7's most important mission was always coming home. And the truth of that nearly broke him all over again. Not in grief this time, but in gratitude, in the kind of gratitude that makes a man realize how fleeting and precious every second is. He slipped into Maya's room one last time, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, the stuffed airplane clutched in her arms, her face innocent in sleep, untouched by the horrors he had faced only a day before. And he knew that all the years of flying, all the battles, all the nights away from home, all the heartbreak and the loss had led to this moment of watching his daughter safe and whole and dreaming. And he swore silently, fiercely, that no matter what came next, no matter what dangers or challenges or storms lay ahead, he would never again forget what mattered most. That every mission he took from here forward was not about the sky, but about the ground, about the people waiting for him to land. The next morning the phone would ring again and again with reporters, officials, even military commanders wanting to speak to him, wanting to label him a hero or to draft him back into service in some advisory role. And though he would answer politely, he knew in his heart that his mission had changed, that Thunder 7 had flown his last combat sortie, not against an enemy nation, but against time and fate itself. And he had won, because he had landed with every passenger alive, and he had come home to the little girl who was his world. As dawn broke outside the window, he imagined the fighter pilots out there in the sky already, men barely older than boys flying missions most people would never know about, carrying the weight of decisions that meant life or death. And he prayed for them, prayed they too would always remember that the planes they flew and the weapons they carried were never about destruction, but about protection. That every missile, every maneuver, every grueling hour in the cockpit was about safeguarding. The simple beauty of a child's laugh, a mother's hug, a father's promise. And in that prayer, he felt a peace he hadn't felt in years. He sat back in his chair, exhausted but unable to close his eyes, because he wanted to hold on to this clarity, this truth, this raw awareness that life was not measured in medals or promotions or headlines, but in moments like pancakes burned by little hands in the kitchen, in drawings of families sent to strangers, in bedtime stories told with laughter through tears, in whispered promises made to photographs and kept against impossible odds. He thought again of the salute in the sky, The silent recognition between him and the young pilot in the F-22. The way one roll of a jet's wing had bridged the gap between generations of warriors. And he realized that it wasn't just a salute to Thunder 7, but to every pilot who had ever carried the burden of coming home. To every family that had ever waited at a runway or a terminal or a front porch. To every promise made by a soldier. A sailor, an airman, a Marine to return, and he knew then that he was not alone. That he was part of a long, unbroken line of men and women who had understood that bravery was never about being fearless, but about loving something so much you refused to let fear decide the ending. Outside, the first rays of sunlight broke through the window and warmed his face, and Sebastian closed his eyes finally, not to sleep but to savor, because tomorrow would bring questions and demands, and more noise than he wanted. But tonight and this morning belonged to silence, to memory, to love. And as he listened to the soft hum of the world waking up around him, he smiled, because for all the turbulence, for all the close calls, for all the battles fought and promises kept, one truth stood tall and unshakable. Thunder 7 was not just a call sign, not just a relic of a past life, but a reminder carved into his very soul that the greatest mission of all is not flying higher or faster than anyone else, but making sure that when the day is done and the skies have cleared, you come home. And as he thought of Maya's words, "Daddy, I'm proud of you," he realized that everything he had ever been, every trial he had ever faced, every battle he had ever fought had been leading him here, to this one simple, sacred victory. He was home, and he would always keep his promise.